This is an anti-barrier champion, and these are the top 5 scout rifles you'll want to have heading into Witch Queen. We already know that scout rifles will be one of the mods used for anti-barrier champions next season, thanks to Bungie's weekly blog post a couple weeks ago. When it comes to the artifact mods themselves, we're bringing back a few perennial favorite anti-champion mods, including anti-barrier scout rifles and bows. We'll cover the bows in a separate video, but in this video we'll talk about scout rifles. Anti-barrier champions show up in lost sectors, nightfalls, seasonal activities, and who knows, they may even show up in the raid. So you definitely want to have at least a few, if not all, of these scout rifles. That way you're fully prepared when the Witch Queen drops. So let's get into it. Now, starting out with the least popular on this list, we have vouchsafe. Vouchsafe is a 200 RPM scout rifle that is void, and this scout rifle can be acquired on the Dreaming City. You can get this through activities such as Blind Well, running the weekly story missions and bounties from Petra, or you can also get it from the Shattered Throne dungeon. This scout rifle is definitely not one of the best and definitely not one of the favorites, but it is void, so just in case you do need void shields and anti-barrier scout rifle, this weapon has you covered. Vouchsafe is at the bottom of this list. In fact, vouchsafe is so unpopular that in the current meta, there's only 0.04% of people actually using this weapon. Now keep in mind, this stat is going to change drastically once we get anti-barrier scouts into the mix, but just keep that in mind as we head into the new season. Now the role you want to look for on vouchsafe, in my opinion, is definitely going to be rapid hit along with vorpal. Rapid hit is going to give you increased stability and reload speed as you get rapid precision hits, and vorpal weapon is going to increase your damage against bosses, and this does work on champions as well. Let me know your guys' thoughts on vouchsafe. Now let's go to the next one. Next scout rifle you want to make sure you have heading into the Witch Queen is going to be Eternal Blazon. This is a 200 RPM scout rifle that is arc. There's not many arc scout rifles in the game currently. That's not Sunset, but this is definitely, in my opinion, going to be one of the better ones. Eternal Blazon is a world drop, meaning you can get it to drop at any point in the world. You can also use your umbral engrams to try and get this thing, and you can even turn in your gunsmith materials, which by the way you need to be doing, to Banshee in order to hopefully get a god roll. PSA, gunsmith materials are going away, so if you did not know that, make sure you spend those before Witch Queen drops. Overall, not too difficult to try and get your hands on an Eternal Blazon. Now you can actually use your umbral engrams to focus for an Eternal Blazon. So if you go to the helm and you go to your prismatic recaster, open up Season of the Splicer, and on the tier 2 focusing, I don't have it unlocked actually, but if you unlock the long shot prismatic lens, you can see you can decrypt this into an Eternal Blazon or a Tarantula. So this is going to be your best shot at getting that role you want for Eternal Blazon. Now the role I would recommend for PvE to deal with anti-barrier champions is definitely going to be Overflow along with Disruption Break. Overflow, when you pick up special or heavy ammo, it reloads the weapon to beyond normal capacity. It's actually going to refill it double the magazine size, which is really good in PvE. Then you have Disruption Break. Breaking an enemy's shield with this weapon makes them more vulnerable to kinetic damage for a brief period. This perk actually does work with anti-barrier champions, so Eternal Blazon is definitely a hot item you want to try and get your hands on. When you break an elemental shield or an anti-barrier, it applies a debuff that grants a 50% increased kinetic damage for 5.5 seconds. Imagine pairing this with Izanagi's Burn, and you can pretty much delete things instantly. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Eternal Blazon. Next up, for Solar. So the Solar scout rifle you want to make sure you have heading into Witch Queen is going to be Vision of Confluence. There are a few Solar scout rifles you can definitely use, and ones that are probably easier to get as well, but in my opinion, Vision of Confluence is definitely the best Solar scout rifle to have against anti-barrier champions. Vision of Confluence is a 180 RPM scout rifle, but it does drop from Vault of Glass. Luckily, Vault of Glass is free, so free-to-play players can still get this weapon, but it is inside of a raid, so if you don't have a team, that could be a problem. Vision of Confluence is an iconic scout rifle brought back from Vault of Glass, and it actually has extremely high popularity in terms of scout rifles. In fact, Vision of Confluence is actually the 4th highest used scout rifle in the game currently at 0.6%. Now imagine next season when we get anti-barrier champions, that number is going to go through the roof. Now the role you want to look for on Vision of Confluence for anti-barrier champions specifically is definitely going to be rewind rounds. Rewind rounds. Bleh. Why is that so hard to say? Rewind rounds. Along with Disruption Break. Rewind rounds. When this weapon's magazine is empty, it refills from reserves based on the number of hits. So it's going to refill the magazine 50 to 60% based on how many hits you hit. So this is essentially going to extend your magazine, similar to like Overflow does. And with Disruption Break, we already saw what that does on the Eternal Blazon. So this scout rifle is going to be a beast for anti-barrier champions. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Vision of Confluence. Now the last 2 scout rifles on this list are going to both be kinetic, so it kind of comes down to personal preference, but they're both both extremely good. At number 2, we have Hung Jury. Hung Jury is a 180 RPM scout rifle. Now this weapon can be a little difficult to obtain. You get it as a reward from the Nightfall. However, the Nightfalls are on a weekly loot rotation, but you still have time to get one of these if you don't already. Hung Jury is a fan favorite, brought back from Destiny 1, and has a whopping 1.19% weapon usage for the Adept version. This is actually going to be one of the top scout rifles for sure heading into Witch Queen. Now the role you want to look for to deal with anti-barrier champions, in my opinion, is going to be Subsistence along with Explosive Payload. Subsistence, when you defeat a target, it partially reloads the magazine from reserves. It'll reload about 10 to 17% of the magazine per kill. Subsistence just recently got a rework, so it actually is doing a lot better than it used to, and so a lot of weapons are performing a lot better now that Subsistence has been buffed. Explosive Payload, projectiles create an area of effect detonation on impact. The cool thing with Explosive Payload is that there's no range fall off, so you can shoot champions across the map and your impact damage will have range fall off, but the explosion damage won't, meaning you can safely take out anti-barrier champions from further away. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Hung Jury. And last but not least, the number 1 scout rifle you want to have heading into the Witch Queen, we have Nightwatch. Nightwatch is currently the most used scout rifle in the game. With the current meta, it's at 1.65% of players using. Now once we get anti-barrier champions, this number will be huge. If you happen to run the new light quests, for example, if you're a new player, there's a specific role on Nightwatch you get as a reward that you can't get randomly to roll on Nightwatch. So if you run the new light quest, if you're a new player, make sure you don't delete this scout rifle. Me being a dummy, I did. For all the non-dummies out there, the role you get is Overflow along with Explosive Payload. But for all the dummies out there, like me, we have to settle with Subsistence. Unfortunately, there's no other way to farm for a Nightwatch. It's in the world loot pool, so the only guaranteed method is by doing the new light quest. Let me know your guys' thoughts on Nightwatch. And that was the top 5 scout rifles you want to have heading into the Witch Queen. We'll cover bows next, so stay tuned. If you want to find out all the best perks to look for on IS Luna, click here. If you want to catch me live, I'll be streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Speer Gaming. Or if you want to check out any of my clips from stream or shorter guides, make sure to check out me on TikTok. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.